The Bipolar Vegan. Be the change.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Bipolar Vegan podcast vlog. Just a bit of housekeeping disclaimer. This podcast vlog is for entertainment and information purposes only. If you require assistance or you are in crisis, please contact your local emergency services, or if you're in the UK, call 111. Remember to consult your medical professional if you're not feeling mentally or emotionally well, your GP, psychiatrist, psychologist, CPN, or key worker, etc. And I'm excited to have, I would classify you as a friend, absolutely, Carolyn Johnson. Would you please introduce yourself to the watchers and listeners?
Hi, thank you for having me. Much appreciated. I'm Carolyn. I have severe sort of social anxiety, and I never know when it's going to rear its head, but I've learned a lot of coping mechanisms. I've got a degree in psychology. I've also got a course in CBT, and I'm a herbalist, and I have done Reiki, you name it, and I've done it. But yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but that kind of leads into the kind of question or the statement that I've found as well, that the knowledge is power, isn't it? You know, learning what you have and coping strategies and stuff like that. It's a journey, and it's like having to pick through things. You know, a lot of these services people aren't getting able to tap into because they just don't know that these services are available. You know,
that's true.
Is that your experience? You know, in terms of learning for your own health.
You have got to learn everything you can about your disorder, because how can you help fix it if you don't know about it? So I'm a great believer in knowledge is vital to, you know, survive in the world, really. Absolutely. And how you can't expect the medics and etc. to do everything for you. You've got to learn to do things for yourself, and it's very empowering as well, especially if you've done an online course or you've been into somewhere where you can learn, like with cognitive behavioural. I had to go in for 12 weeks, twice a week, and it really helped. It really switched my brain. And I think sometimes you go through life and you have those moments when it just twigs. And when that happens, it's almost like, yeah, you want to punch the air because it's fine, it's twigged with you what it's about. Because it's not easy. It's not easy to understand. I found Reiki, the theory behind it, you know, a bit way out there, because I really couldn't understand it. But when I did my first introduction to Reiki, I got it. And I think the same with knowledge. You have to start learning what it's all about to get it.
Yeah. Let it click. You know, for one person, you know, one therapy might work, but for another it won't. You know, it's finding what works for you.
Yeah. And I think the best thing I ever did was to find a hobby. Hobbies are underrated, but if you actually look up the benefits of hobby, they're immense. They help you to put things in perspective. It's another thing that you can learn to do. It's calming. It's beneficial to you. It lifts your vibration. They've done studies on electrical activity of somebody not doing a hobby and somebody do it, and they actually measured and there was a definite difference on. We were sort of like 4 hertz up to 6 hertz when you did a hobby. You know, when you're generating that your own electricity, Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, it's like you say, it's frequencies and stuff like that, but it's you get into the flow state, you know. The flow state is, you know, in a hobby or pastime, you get so engrossed in what you're doing, it becomes just so natural. And your brain activity during these periods of time, you know, it heals the brain, it heals
Yeah,
the connections, it makes new
it does.
connections. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's so important to have
yeah,
something that you work with, you know, and it might take quite a while to find that
yeah,
hobby. You know,
yeah,
I've got like
yeah.
hundreds of little things that I love doing, but
Mm,
actually making the time for it, you know, especially if you're in a specific headspace, like say you're in a
mm,
depressive cycle, it's very difficult to get yourself going to do something. But finding something that's maybe not too taxing that you can do, what I've found, like mindful coloring has been really helpful for me
mm.
during depression cycles, because I've got a set of pens, I've got an adult coloring book. It's an adult coloring book, so it's got swear words in it and stuff like that. So it's funny as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I've
mm,
got a nice set of pens, and I spend time thinking about the colors. And I get a wee bit anxious because I'm
yeah.
colorblind as well.
Right.
I find it difficult picking the colors, so that's a bit of a struggle. But see, if I get it right and I'm happy with the end result, it's an amazing thing to do, you know.
It is, and it's creating a good habit,
Hmm.
because I think when you do have any mental health problems, you can create really bad habits, and you
Hmm.
don't mean to, but you can. And by, like you said, doing something mindful, doing something just doing whatever it is creating, starting a good habit.
Yeah,
And it's like an exchange. You have to exchange a bad habit for a good habit. And even to your inner words, the way you talk to yourself in your
yeah.
head, instead of putting "I'm not worthy, I can't do this," we change that language, change the can't to a can.
Hmm.
And once you start just thinking about it,
Yeah.
it naturally starts to happen
It's a
in life.
shift. It's a
It's
shift,
a
isn't
thing.
it?
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And I think it's the same with a hobby. It shifts you become much more mindful
Hmm.
of things around you. Like you can be out walking or out shopping, you think, goodness me, that I want to paint that picture, I'm going to paint it. And you can take a photograph on your phone and take it home and paint it.
Well,
Or even having it, I know people who do a lot of jigsaws, they take a photograph and they can have that photograph transferred into a
a
jigsaw.
jigsaw. Yeah,
So it's something that they've done, they've taken the photograph,
yeah.
they've ordered the jigsaw and they've completed a jigsaw.
Hmm.
And it again, it's all about benefits. This is going to benefit me. Yes, it is going to benefit you, because you're going to feel very accomplished when you've done it.
I just following on from what you were saying there, a lovely sight. I haven't seen it for so long, but I was on the bus yesterday, the day before, and I saw a car parked in an unusual space near a roundabout. And I was like, oh, that's a weird place to park. We came round the roundabout, and I saw somebody had set up an easel and his canvas, and he was getting his paints ready. And I'm going, ah, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah,
I've not seen that in so
yeah,
long. Somebody just
yeah,
in nature, or you know, he's wanting to do a landscape or whatever, and it's just
yeah,
like it's lovely to see. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, it is. And it's it just does something inside you. It's like our instinct, our survival instinct kicks in, I think, when you have a hobby, because to me, doing my hobbies is my survival.
Hmm.
If I couldn't have my hobbies, or I had a period of time not being able to paint or something, I get really grouchy.
Yeah.
To me, it's a survival. It's my way of surviving the day.
Hmm. Hmm.
If I can do something that is either creative or artistic, there is literally not a day that goes by that I don't do something.
Hmm.
Working on a diamond art at the moment, and
Hmm.
the other night I couldn't sleep. I went to bed 11 o'clock,
Hmm.
12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I got up at 2 o'clock and I came down and I did half an hour of diamond art.
Mhm.
It's something you can pick up and put down really quickly.
It's one thing that a lot of my friends say it's really good, and I haven't tried it, but I really want to try it.
Yeah.
I think I would enjoy it, because especially with my ADHD, when I'm working on something, I like having something to focus all my time on, because in terms of how the brain works and your focus, and again, like what we said before about the flow, you get into this zone where it's peaceful. You know, you're doing something that's creative. You're relaxing your thought processes, your negative thoughts, to just kind of fade away. You know.
But it's almost subconsciously, when I start doing it, I stop thinking. I just stop thinking, and to me, that's a good habit to actually, you know. Sometimes people have to say, "Well, go away and think about it." I don't. I come do my diamond art, and all thoughts go out my head. Then I start listening to sounds around me. I become very mindful. I can hear sounds out in the garden, and you know, it just brings you back down to earth, and I can go to bed then and I'll sleep.
Yeah, gives you that peaceful rest. You've done something creative, and it's been a productive day, you know.
That's right.
So obviously we connected through artwork and talking about our struggles and coping strategies with our mental health journeys, and we you know, we're in fairly constant contact with big chats every couple of months, and I know that helps me, you know. So you know, I think, you know, artwork or something creative, even if you're not arty, you know, like I've got other, you know, like pastimes or, you know, hobbies, things like, you know, airfix models. You know, I love airfix models. And it's the ability to get lost in doing something. If you can find, and whatever that is, you know, it could be gardening. It could be gardening. It could be, you know, I don't know, cars. You know, a lot of people are interested in cars and stuff like that. You know, whatever your hobbies are interested in, have it such a in your life and structure that it's a form of therapy, it's a form of release, it's a form of relaxing the mind and getting rid of those negative thought patterns. You know what I mean?
Right, and it's distracting as well. It takes you away from your own problems, and so it can be distracting. I know somebody who takes apart broken computers and gets them into working computers. People just take them, any old computers they got, they take them to him, and he repairs them and then gives them away to charity.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And you know, it's not costing him anything because everything's been donated to him, and yet he's getting something from it. You know, he's getting learning as well. He's learning as he's going along, and then he just gives them to a charity, and so it just fulfills a need in us. We all want to try and help somebody. I think it's just natural that as humans we want to be kind and we want to be helpful. But when you can continue. When you are sort of in the depression, that must be really hard to think of other people.
It's so difficult.
So difficult. And you know, I'm lucky. I don't think I have, although anxiety disorder is classed as depression, but I don't class it as depression.
Okay, so what projects are you working on at the moment? I know we talked offline about that purpose-built exhibition space. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I can. We have a local theatre, it's called the Embassy, and it's been around for years and years. And it had a facelift about 15 years ago, but they've been awarded absolutely shitloads of money to renovate it, and they're going to have, they're extending it about a third again.
Right.
You can seat about 800 people, but that's going to change. It's going up to 1,000 people. They're having all new seating in, new stage put in, new curtains and all that.
You have an alarm activation. You have an alarm activation.
The amazing thing with technology. Well, that's good. It works. It works.
Yeah, at least we know it works. Yeah.
We'll keep that in. We'll keep that in because that's funny.
Oh dear. Yeah. So I heard about this on Facebook. The local council put something on Facebook because it's a bit complicated. You got East Lindsey District Council at Munster Council, but the people that run the entertainment come under a different umbrella, Magna Vitae, and they got awarded this money, and the idea was to repurpose some smaller theatres and improve ours. And right from day one, they decided that they would they were going to have purpose-built art space for people to display their work, and that it was all done by some architects in London. And I contacted the gentleman that was organising it, and he invited me to go and meet him. And he had some really good ideas, and he showed me some pictures of what it's likely to look like. And it's going to be really amazing. And I did like a business plan about how I thought it could be run. And sort of, so one artist would have can display their work for 3 weeks at a time, and they have to be there if there are any sales, to take the sale, etc. And he thought that was quite a good idea, but it's something that they are working on. I gave him loads of different ideas about how to run it and the type of things that need to be in place. You want places where people can display pottery, to display a freestanding organic piece of metalwork or something.
Sculpture or something like that.
Also, it's all forms of art, no matter how they come. It's just somewhere where there could be some that on permanent display for well-known artists, but the area is mainly for local artists. Because my bugbear is that most of the councils will only invite well-known professional artists.
Right.
Little fish like me don't get a look in. So hopefully this will change all this. But having said that, I couldn't believe what I read last night. There's a festival here it's on Saturday and Sunday, and it's been going on for about 12 years. It's called the Sew Festival. And originally it started by a Danish company, and the idea was to bring the arts to local people. So they have these fantastic parades. Last year it was all puppetry. These huge, great, big dinosaurs were walking down. It was very odd, and there was people moving, so they walked just like you would imagine a dinosaur would walk. And they had a lot of circus themed activities. You could go and have a workshop on, learning how to do some circus tricks and that. But thank you. And that went down really well. And they're bringing that back this year. And the other thing that was really good last year, pavement artists. You had chalk and you can draw a picture on the pavements. And because they got a pedestrian area, I thought, lovely, be able to do that this year. No. They brought in three young girls who know nothing about the area. They don't live here. And the theme was put to them that they had to do something regarding the sea. And one girl worked out, she's done quite a big display using material. I mean, they were good, but they're not local. And that really irked me. I straight onto the email, I sent him an email saying, wonderful idea, but why is it not local people? Why is it being done by people who've never been to this town? They don't know the area, they don't know the people, they don't know what people like here. Because we're a weird bunch, in Lincolnshire. A very weird bunch of people. So that got my nose a bit. But I think the new theatre is going to be amazing.
What's the time frame for
2 years? 2
2 years?
years. 2 years, yeah. Because the planning is not more or less finished now. All the planning, the drawings have all gone through. So it's just waiting to after this summer. The plan is to start in November. And the summer season here is until October, into October. So I believe the plan is that they are starting the first week in November.
Right. That's good. Excellent. Again, whether or not you want to answer this, or we can move on from it, but basically, I know you personally and stuff like that, and I wanted to know, or if you're up for it, to share how you cope with other family members' mental health. I'm not going to name names on here, as obviously we don't have their permissions, and they're not here to talk for themselves. But if you're comfortable talking in general terms, I'm sure the listeners and watchers would be interested to know more about that.
Yeah, when you know that a family member is having problems, you have to find a way to reach them, and sometimes they can't always talk to the nearest and dearest, but a nana or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle can be more reachable. And it's hard to draw them out. Sometimes you have to sort of ask the question, I know you're not been feeling so good lately. Do you think this is down to? And so you ask the question, and I think it's really important not to be frightened to ask that question, because I always think, what's the worst thing that could happen? One, they could get upset, they could throw it back in my face and tell me to mind my own business. So there's all sorts of things that could go wrong. But when I asked the question, I was only thinking about things that could go right.
Yes.
How we could get over that first hurdle. And once that question was asked, the floodgates opened, and you were able to go right back in time. When did you first feel like this? You know, and it helps you to advise them, because kids come to you for advice, and you need to know what the problems are so you can give them the best advice. And then it's up to them if they take it or not.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, I was lucky enough, and I was so proud that the person was able to open up to me, and has not looked back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it for some people it's really hard. I help to run a mental health group here, and you can talk on it every single day, and there's very little coming back, because I think when you are in either a mental health crisis or you just don't know what to do next, it's really hard to say how you're feeling, to even say help, I need help, because it's really hard to, a lot of people still find it really hard to talk about mental health. And I'm pretty open about it. I'll talk to anybody.
I talk to complete strangers about my mental health, you know what I mean? I've met so many people out and about and talking about mental health and their own struggles and my struggles and stuff like that. And they're really good friends now, do you know what I mean?
They do say every third person you walk past has got a mental health of some description. And I think that's pretty accurate. But if I've had panic attacks in town, and I've just leant on the shop window and somebody said, "Oh, you're all right?" I said, "No, I'm bloody not. And I need this, I need that." Because you completely lose the plot when you have a panic attack, don't you?
Totally.
You babble, you don't really know what you're saying, and it can get out of hand really quickly. And all you want is somebody to put a hand very lightly on your shoulder and say, "I've got you." That's all it takes.
Yeah, I find that, you know, sometimes I'm not looking for advice or somebody to fix the problem. I'm just looking for somebody that will listen.
Yes.
And a lot of the time it's a physical comfort for me. I need that hug. I need that somebody just to say it's going to be okay. Even, you know, they don't need to fix anything. They're not there to solve anything. They're just there, a wee bit of moral support, and I'm fine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know, I say, can I hold your hand for a moment?
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't care who they are, even children. I mean, my grandson comes and babysits me because I don't like being in the house on my own sometimes. So he comes and babysits me, and it's a bit of a joke. Family, everybody's accepted it, all my friends know about it, and there's no judgment. You know, this is what you need, so this is what you will get. I just wish that I could say that to everybody. Everybody needs to just stop complaining, stop judging, and just be kind. I wish that was my wish, if I could heal the world.
The most important thing in life that I've come to realize now in my later life is love. Love is the most important thing. Love from your family, love and kindness, friends. That's the most important thing, you know. If you've got that in your life, you can do anything. You know? That's the superpower, you know.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes when you are really low, you can't give that love back. But what's important is that you can take it. You can take a bit of that energy for yourself.
Yeah.
Because what goes around comes around. You know, they might need that back one day. There's a word that, well, more than a word, a thing that I've heard quite recently, and it is pass it forward.
Pay it forward. Yeah,
pay it forward. No matter what it is, pay it forward. Whether it's just a kind word, a kind deed, kind words, or just a mental thought, or I was thinking about you. Just
actually it was a movement formed after a film called Pay It Forward in the 90s by with Haley Joel Osment.
All right.
And what's his name now? Sizer Cozy from Unusual Suspects. Oh, what's his name, the actor? That's going to bug me now. Anyway, and the premise behind the boy, they have a project at school, and the boy comes up with the project of you help 3 people, and each of those 3 people help 3 people, and the movement grows. And that's where it came from. Pay it forward, you know.
I didn't know that.
So look out the movie. It's
I will.
It's sad, but it's a beautiful film. It's a beautiful film.
But if we all did that, wouldn't we all be better off?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think also as you get older, your perspective changes. How you feel changes. I think as I've got older, I've become much more accepting and much less judgy. And I don't know. I'm just different to how I was 10 years ago. And I think that's because my mental health started going wrong in 2000. I was at university doing my degree in psychology. And in the last term, so I was going from Skegness to the Montfort University in Leicester 3 days a week. So that's 100 miles there, 100 miles back. And in the one evening coming back, because my last lecture was at 5, so I left there at 6. So it was pitch dark, and I got forced off the road by a lorry.
Wow.
And I felt fine at the time. I wasn't damaged. The car wasn't damaged. I did end up in a field, but I got myself out. But the next day, I thought, I didn't quite feel myself. But a week later, I started driving, and I had to pull over because I thought I was passing out. I never had a panic attack before, so I didn't know what it was. And I passed it out, and I thought, I need the toilet now. And I was in the middle of nowhere. And I actually knocked on somebody's house and said, I'm really desperate for the loo.
Yeah.
And after that, the next day, I couldn't even walk out my back door.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, I couldn't even leave my bedroom. That's how quickly it happened. Yeah, it was frightening. My partner at the time walked out, which didn't help. But yeah, I can't cope with this. And yeah, if he just showed a bit of kindness, a bit of understanding, things wouldn't have gone on to be as bad as what they were. But yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had a really bad car accident. I was driving and I rolled the car and stuff like that, and the car was in terrible shape. And I couldn't even get in the passenger seat of the car for about a year and a half. My anxiety level and driving was longer, you know, getting back into driving and stuff like that. But it is true what they say about, you know, like getting back on the horse and stuff like that. I know that that does work for some people, but if people have severe anxiety issues or other mental health issues, like, you know, it's such a struggle, you know, when, you know, it's a traumatic event, PTSD, you know, a lot of mental health issues, you know, everybody's on the mental health scale, you know, everybody's got their issues, everybody's got the ups and downs and stuff like that, but a lot of it stems from trauma, you know, incidents in the past in life, not being able to compartmentalize things, you know, you know, and I'm a great believer, you know, drilling down to the root of these issues. You know, I also had an incident at one of my old employment. He was a friend, I would classify as him as a friend and my boss, but he attacked me at work. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, it was circumstantial in terms of we were both drinking and stuff like that, and it got into a heated argument. But, you know, I'm not a particularly big person, and he was massive, you know, and he just punched me in the face and just knocked me over, you know what I mean? And it was like, yeah, fair enough, I was in his face arguing and stuff like that, but you just don't do that. And I couldn't go back to work. He just brushed it off and said, oh, you know, just cover it. I couldn't go back to work for him, and I couldn't leave the house, I couldn't eat. It was horrible. And during that period of time, I experienced my first anxiety attack. And I'd never had an anxiety attack before. And I thought I was dying, you know. I thought, you know, I had to phone, it was in its infancy, but NHS 24. And obviously they couldn't really help me over the phone as such, just kind of give advice or whatever. But, you know, I thought I was dying, you know. I thought I was having a heart attack or something like that, you know. So, you know, I've experienced that side. Luckily, you know, touch wood, I haven't experienced it, and I've got things that I've learned again, you know, things like CBT and stuff like that. I've learned to be able to manage the anxiety to a level. I still have quite high anxiety, especially social anxiety, and I find things like public transport or crowded places extremely difficult to deal with. But I put my headphones on, and that's me. For me, music therapy, that's what works for me. You know, and that's where, you know, where I started doing the dancing out in the streets and stuff like that. That was my way of coping. That was my therapy. And the offshoot of that was that I was making other people smile, you know, and you know, and if I made one person smile that day, I've done my job for the day. Do you know what I mean? Really like that. Before I forget, you know, how I was talking about that film, Pay It Forward. It was Kevin Spacey is the other actor. He's
yes.
I can't remember his name, so it's Kevin Spacey. So it's a brilliant film. If you get a chance, look it up. Pay It Forward with Kevin Spacey and Haley Joel Osment.
Because because he's person nobody wants to have anything to do with him now. Do
Exactly. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate because I did like him as an actor, you know. And then obviously all this comes out about his personal life and stuff like that. It's very difficult to separate the person, the actor, and the personal life.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
How do you find the mental health services are like in your area? Are you getting the proper support?
Absolutely not. They every 6 months or so they change. It's like they used to have that you could just walk in and refer yourself. Then that stopped. Now it's just been reintroduced. I think it just depends on how many people. There's it's called Holly Lodge here, and it used to be a hospital for psychiatric hospital, and it had 12 beds. So they did away with that, and it was just for clinic use. And they would have these support groups and that running there. But it's such a long wait, and everything is on numbers. So when I first self-referred myself, I filled out the form and I was scored at 12, which meant I needed some help. So I got to see somebody, and she got me on the CBT thing that I had to score myself, my moods every day, and how I was sleeping, how I was eating, and each thing would be allocated a number. And I went saw her, I think, 4 times, and when the 4th time, that was at once a fortnight. When the 4th time came, because my score jumped to be a bit better, not by much, whereas before I was scoring, say, for example, 12, then I was going down to 10. Anything under 10 was said that we were well, that we've been cured. And I argued the point, and she said, I'm sorry, my hands are tied. So in other words, I said, I've got to come here and lie to be able to carry on, getting the help I feel I need. And she didn't answer me, and I thought that's absolutely ridiculous.
Terrible.
But it has changed now, and a lot of people that were working there are not now. So, but I haven't been recently, but I know from other people there's such a long wait, and people are not getting the help. They're ringing 999. My friend's daughter committed suicide in November. It took she rang 999. She said she'd been drinking and she'd taken some drugs, and she was regretting it. 2 hours they turned up and she was dead.
Wow.
And when there was an investigation done, and the ambulance authority held up their hand, and they said that particular night they were absolutely inundated, and they just had to choose very carefully where to send the next available ambulance as to who they sent it to. And they thought that she would be all right until they got there, and she'd locked herself in the house. They had to break the back door down to get in, or the police did, and sadly it was too late for her.
That's such a tragic story, and it didn't need to happen. I mean, if the services were there, I mean, obviously we don't have it in this country, but they've introduced a specific mental health helpline in America. It's I think it's 988 in America, and I strongly believe they should have something like that in the UK, where like NHS 24, which is 111, you should have a specific mental health helpline, something like Samaritans, where it's medical advice as well. You know what I mean? Because people do reach out. I mean, like, I've had suicidal tendencies, but I've never acted on them. Suicidal ideation. And I've planned it in my head, various different points in my life, doing it in different ways. And my most recent was because I've still got quite a lot of medication lying about because of excess pills and excess this, whatever. I've actually got quite a lot of pills hanging about, which I shouldn't have. And I should really take them to the chemist to dispose of them. And I had them all lined out. And I said, right, okay, I've got enough here, you know, I think I've got enough here to you know, kind of end it, you know. But the thing that brought me out of that is I couldn't do it to my mum, you know, because my mum's dad committed suicide, and I couldn't do it to the person who found me if it wasn't my mum, you know what I mean? Which in all likelihood would have been my mum. Do you know what I mean? So I couldn't do that double whammy type thing. And again, it's having the presence of mind, because if you're not in the right headspace, you can't lift yourself out of it, and you need that helping hand. You need that external support, you know.
Yeah, I think my external support now is my daughter. She went through during COVID lockdown. She became very anxious and depressed. Up until then, she hadn't really understood what it was like. Since then, she's been amazing, very supportive, and we have a really, really good relationship.
That's really
And if I'm not well, it doesn't matter whatever upset time and what. I hate being in the house on my own. I ring her and she just brings the computer and works from here.
Brilliant.
On my own, you know, and she wouldn't have done that before COVID because it wouldn't have entered her head. That her presence here can make such a difference. And I think the COVID, the lockdown, did a lot of good and it did a lot of bad. But out of it, we came through, I think, as a stronger race.
Well, I mean, even just technology, you know, the fact of being able to communicate with people. I mean, like we're communicating now, the ability to be able to speak to other people around the world and have access to therapies that you wouldn't have normally get, you know, video conference calls with your doctor or psychiatrist and stuff like that now. For people that can't leave the house or whatever, it's opened up so much more, you know. But the downside is everybody's anxiety is so much higher of leaving the house. Leaving the house is such a big thing. Do you know what I mean? Even my mum suffered from, you know, that high anxiety. I mean, she used to quite easily go every week to visit my sister and my nephew every week on the dot, and it was a family thing. And as soon as COVID hit, and then obviously then we were able to visit other households and stuff like that, she wouldn't go. She just wouldn't go. You know, anxiety of driving there, the anxiety of being out the house, you know. And now, thankfully, slowly but surely, we've introduced something more regularly now. So we're going to go through every month. And that's me going through as well. You know, I'm doing the driving. I've got a 1-year driving license from my medical license. So I do, wherever I get the opportunity, I drive because I love driving. So it takes a lot of anxiety away as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And with the children as well. I mean, there's a whole generation of children, sort of 4 to 5 years old, that didn't see another child for 2 years. And I know there's a lot of children that started at school really struggled mixing with other kids.
They didn't have those skills, those interactive skills.
That's right. I mean, they hadn't played with another child, and they didn't know how to play. They didn't know about sharing, you know, and things like that. I think the effects will be felt eventually, because Freud always said any trauma will at some point in your life surface. You can suppress it, but it will always come out. And I think we are going to have a generation of children when they're older of having mental health problems.
Well, I mean, the generation, I'm talking about Generation Z, right? So Generation Z is basically, I know a few people in that category, and their mental health has suffered so much because their whole life is online, you know, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, everything like that. And it's the online bullies. It's, you know, you know, there's a great documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've started watching it.
Yeah, it's an eye opener. I just watched it. I went wow, and all my young friends, I asked them to go and watch it, and ironically, I shared it on social media. But it's like the one snippet I'll take from it before going, before I forget, is there's only two industries in history that calls humans users, and that's the drug industry and social media. You know what I mean? We are the commodity when it comes to social media. Just because we don't buy, or you know, it's like not, doesn't seem like a shop front. The whole social media, depending on how you interact with it, it's intelligent enough to show you things that you click on, and more things you click on, and you know, you're steered in a certain direction and stuff like that. It is really mind opening, and I recommend.
Controlling. It's very controlling.
Yeah, but
it's set to be controlling.
But when it comes to like the mental health aspect of Generation Z, it's like a lot of individuals have developed anxiety issues, social anxiety issues, body dysmorphia issues, because, you know, again, what they said in the documentary is that you've got youngsters wanting to get plastic surgery to look like their filters in these apps. Do you know what I mean? That's scary. That is scary. You know what I mean?
So, just trying to move my chair.
That's right. And you get, you know, like online bullying and stuff like that. I couldn't cope living in today's technology. You know what I mean? And growing up, you know, like the curve of technology, you know, every year it doubles, you know, so it's just goes up like that. And there was a point in my life, kind of early 20s, where I just shunned all technology because I couldn't cope with it because it was going so fast back then. Do you know what I mean? And I slowly got back into technology because, you know, I needed a better phone, or, you know, I thought, I'll do a tablet or whatever kind of thing. And obviously my line of business is technology, you know, graphic design, so it's the software and the technology and stuff. But what we've lost, I think, is the ability to just go into nature, enjoy nature, go in, you know, the mindfulness aspect of it, you know, getting the right help rather than relying on a device or an application. Do you know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's great apps out there for things like meditation, guided meditation, mindfulness and stuff like that. Fantastic. But again, you need to be signposted to these things, or you need to find them yourself, and it's up to you, you know. And you know, that's one of the purposes of doing this podcast and vlog is to let people know that there are services out there that can help. And, you know, where possible, I'll put them in the descriptions and the show notes, links to, you know, really good websites or apps and stuff like that. And that's something as well that maybe if you've come across anything, send me the information and I'll put them in the show notes and the description of the video. If there's something that you've found particularly helpful that you've come across, and I'll put a link into it.
Well, it's just things like find out about mindfulness, find out about your particular disorder, There's so many papers written out there, and don't just look at.
Don't just Google. Don't just Google it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at from different countries, because there's so many countries out there who have done studies that we haven't done.
Yeah, like
So
Switzerland and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's worth looking at papers that have been sort of on that particular subject. But a lot of the things that I know there's not many places we go to and learn everything all at once. You have to.
That was called the library back in my day.
Yeah.
Encyclopedia Britannica. Encyclopedia. You couldn't take it out of the library. They stayed in the library.
It's underused resource. And find out about local groups. Find out about support groups.
Yeah.
And make sure that your doctor is aware of how you're really feeling. Although in the case here, the doctors here are not interested in mental health. That all of them, they're really not bothered.
That's an important thing to say or state, actually, when you bring it up, is I've found as well from my journey, is it's so important to find the right doctor and therapist for you. So for me, I went in and I asked specifically for my GP if they have an interest in mental health, or you know what I mean? And the same with psychiatry, if they've got like a special interest or a speciality, because it's so important to get the right fit, and it's so important to be completely and utterly honest with these professionals. Because unless you're 100% honest with them, you can't get the right help. You can't get the right thing that fits you, you know. That's
right. I mean, back in the day, with a GP surgery, nearly every one of them would have a speciality. I remember in the where I go, there was a doctor who had a special interest with orthopedics. Another one was women's health. Another one was sort of physical disabilities. And so they each had their own specialities. So if there's a particular issue you want to talk to, you could ask for that particular doctor. But you can't do that anymore. I mean, you're lucky if you get an appointment with a doctor, full stop.
I mean, that like you said, you know, you have to remember, like a GP is a general practitioner. They're there to help people with sniffly noses, backaches and stuff like that. They're not geared up for mental health. But another thing that I think is important that everybody should do is make a list of things to go and say. Even if it's like a monologue, it's 20 pages long, whatever it is, write it down, go to your profession, you know, GP or a key worker, or, you know, a psychiatrist or therapist, and read it out and just say to them, I've got everything written down, I'm going to read it out, and then let them you know, come to some sort of kind of conclusion with that. Do you know what I mean?
I do, but I think you've got to have the right GP, because if I did that to one of my GPs, we get 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
It would be, oh, we haven't got time to go through all that. And you're only allowed to talk about one thing. So even though I might have two things wrong for me, I've got to make 2 separate appointments.
Right.
You're only allowed to talk about one thing. And so before you even go in there, you're stressed because you know you haven't got the time to be heard. And I'm lucky enough that my husband paid for me to go and have therapy. I went private, and he was a hypnotherapist as well. So he hypnotized me, and what is really strange, because I was not aware that I was being hypnotized, but I was. And what he helped me to do was lock things away, things I can't do anything about, because we talked about to letting go of things that you can't alter now, because what is gone is gone. But what he did, he helped me to lock that idea away. So he said, where would you like to lock this away to? And I said, Harry Potter, Azkaban. I want to go to... And he said, right. And he was so in with it. And he said, well, what spell should we use to make sure the doors are always locked and never can be opened? I may change, do you want the door? And it was so therapeutic. I've actually used that since.
That's brilliant.
he taught me how to do self-hypnotism.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's
so when
brilliant.
something bugs me, I go and lock it up there.
Do you think you need to have that initial be hypnotized for it to work? Like, you know, like a continuation, or do you think that you'd be able to impart that information on how to hypnotize yourself?
It's a process. It's not something you learn straight away. It's something that you
Because
build.
I know personally about NLP, you know, neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah.
Basically, that is, you know, there's the hypnotherapy side of that, if that makes sense. So I do understand that. I think if you're knowledgeable enough, I think you could do it. But I think you need that kind of guiding hand to begin with, and you know, give you a route and a few exercises to do, so therefore you can do it on your own. I
think about 12, 14 lessons with him, and each one 2 hours long. And I enter it through meditation. So I get into meditation first. And I just go deeper from there. I'm completely aware of whatever is going on. Any sounds I still acknowledge them. It's like a conveyor. You acknowledge the thought, but you just let it pass. And then I know when I come out, and I tell myself I'm going to feel refreshed when I come out. And I don't just come out quickly. I come out really slowly. I have a walk. I walk myself down this road.
And that's you coming out of it.
I get to that first tree. I started to wake up.
That's good.
Go to crossroads, and I'm fully awake then.
Brilliant.
I
think it's important as well. I don't think I've mentioned this before in the past, but just to cover it, when we've talked today about the different therapies and stuff like that. So just to give the listeners and viewers the proper description. So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. DBT is dialectical behavioral therapy, and ACT is acceptance and commitment therapy. Now, I think it's important, again, from an educational point of view, to see what fits you best. Now, I've done tons of CBT, tons of it, and a lot of it doesn't work for me. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. But what I find is that it only works when I'm in the right headspace, when I'm able to do it. When I hit a depression, everything I've learned, all the hints and tips and techniques goes out the window, because it's all encompassing the depression. Whereas I seek out training for the DBT and the ACT. So I've got like audiobooks that is more technical. So I'm learning the ins and outs of the therapies and stuff like that. And that's what helps me, because knowledge, again, as I say, is so powerful, you know, especially for you. And if, like we said before, you need to help yourself first. If you don't help yourself, you can't help anybody else, you know what I mean? You know? And once you're in that right headspace and you're stable for a good period of time, you know, give yourself some space, you know, don't say, right, you know, within a couple of days, right, I'm better or ready to face the world. Give yourself some time, weeks, months, however long. And then I think another really good key thing to get involved in, if you're able to, is volunteer work, you know, because, you know, there might not be necessarily the same amount of pressure of an employment, but you're there and you're giving your time, you're helping an organization or an individual, you know. I've done volunteering in the past for British Heart Foundation. It really helped me. But it did its job, if that makes sense. So I've had that experience. Whereas the next thing that I'm thinking of doing, once you know, my focus at the moment is to do these podcasts and do the interviews and go through that whole process and have a bank of videos and interviews that I feel are good and going to help people. After that, there's a scheme that a friend suggested that I do is called Gig Buddy. And that's
Yeah.
where I go along to gigs and things like cinema with somebody that's got maybe learning difficulties that
Yeah.
just need somebody there support, but in a way that they don't rely on me, so that they've got other support there, because
Yeah.
you know, during that depression cycle I wouldn't be able to meet up with them. Do you know what I mean?
No,
So
no.
that
I think it's
option's there.
so- I think it's really important to, you got all this information, you've learned about all these different therapies. You have to pick and choose what
Cherry
works
pick.
from a
Yeah.
bit from that and a bit from that,
Yeah.
and a bit from that, and that is what I'll work on. So no, there's no one thing that's going to fit everybody.
Yeah.
You have to be very selective on what you think will help you. And I think it's really important to keep talking to people, you know, try not to shut yourself away, because it is so easy to do that, just to close the door and, you know, I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. We've all felt that. But it just doesn't. One of the things I've had to learn, I think, that my friend taught me, was about knowing what will benefit you. I use this a lot with people. People get angry about things, and I said, well, you got angry about this, but what benefit have you got from it? Have you got any benefit from it? And it just gets them to stop and think, well, actually, no, I'm not benefited from yelling at so-and-so for any reason.
Yeah.
And it just makes you stop and think. And I think if you can find any therapy that does that, just helps you to put things in perspective. Because I think when you're anxious, you do lose perspective.
Yeah.
Everything's a lot worse than what, you know, it could be in something mind of somebody else, but to me, it's a massive big thing.
Well, a lot of kind of people's mental health comes through in emotions, you know, like anger, you know, anger, being upset, tearful, recluse, you know, loads of different emotions, but it's all stemming from the inability to be able to compartmentalize things and rationalize things. And again, you know, if you're not feeling well, you can't do these things. But you know, learning, that's, you know, the key thing. Learn. Every day is a school day. I'm always learning new things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I found, that people who have never done any research or even looked at a book, they don't have the ability to envisage what the future could be like without them having panic attacks. And you have to show them a way to get through that, a way. I've got a friend who has never read a book, never picked a magazine up, doesn't often watch the news, doesn't do any hobbies, but she has really bad anxiety. But because of her lack of knowledge, it's actually holding her back from going forwards. And I don't know how to get through. I don't know how to reach her to say, well, why don't you, you know, I've tried I said, oh, just read this one page. Oh, I've read it to her.
Yeah.
And discuss it that way.
Yeah.
But I think there's some people out there, no matter how hard you want to try, you can't help. I think that's a big thing to acknowledge. You can't help everybody.
No.
You can only help some people.
Well, it's the age-old thing, isn't it? You can't help all the people all the time. You can only help some of the people some of the time.
Yeah.
All right, so we're
fix everybody, wouldn't we?
Exactly. Fix the world. Honestly, magic bullet time. Right, so we've just got a couple of minutes left. Have you got one piece of advice that you've learned through the years that might help someone else?
Talk. And if somebody suggests something or try this, do it, try it, read about it, because
Don't just dismiss it, basically.
don't dismiss it. No,
Mhm.
just, you know, somebody said, like you about this social dilemma. Now you mentioned, I'm going to go and watch it,
Mhm.
and just do that with anything that somebody tells you about, because it's how we gain knowledge.
Mhm.
We don't know it's there.
Mhm. Until somebody says it. Until somebody
Yeah.
says it, basically. You know,
Yeah.
how do you discover otherwise, either by mistake or somebody recommends it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's right. And just be open. I think open is the word. Open.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been fantastic talking to you, especially in this format as well. Question and answer. I've learned so much more as well about you, which is great. So thanks again, everybody, for joining. I'd say, yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to get you back on again, maybe in a little while. See how things are going, and how you're coping with things. It'd be great to do a catch up. And thanks again for your time, your energy, your positivity, and your friendship. It's greatly appreciated. It's greatly appreciated.
Appreciate your friendship. You're always my go-to guy.
Yeah. There's a problem. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Who's going to be up? Steph.
Anybody up?
Anybody there? Right. Well, thanks very much. And everybody, click the links, all the information below. Comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you at the next podcast. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Please like, share, and comment. Your opinions matter. Thanks very much.